Yesterday, Twitch streamer Hasan was trending for what many are calling his worst take ever, which is shocking because a lot of people feel like Hasan has lots of bad takes. And in this video, we're going to go over why his actual take wasn't really that bad. And I actually agree with him. And I know that you're already disliking this video. I know. And here's the thing, right? Later in this video, I'm going to talk about why people hate this take so much and they are unable to comprehend what he's saying. A lot of people are attacking this from an emotional perspective, and I want to kind of take a deep dive into that because I actually, even though I'm making this video stating the claim that I actually think Hasan is pretty much right here, nobody's probably going to leave this video with a changed perspective, right? If you came into this video hating Hasan, you're probably going to leave the video hating Hasan, and that's because you didn't arrive at that conclusion logically. You heard at what he said, you had an emotional response, and that's just how that goes. People rarely change their mind from what they read on the internet. Just like if you see somebody, you know, having a rally on Main Street, you're probably not going to drive by and read the sign and be like, oh, you know what, actually maybe I will change my political opinion. Like, it never happens. Okay, so this video probably not going to change the mind of anybody. Okay, but I wanted to give you guys my perspective on what Hasan said because I think that I have a kind of unique perspective here. A couple of the reasons that Hasan got a lot of hate, well, I would say the main one is because he's rich and he's a streamer, and people do not respect those two classes of people, right? People think streaming is easy, and so if anyone complains about their job being a streamer, then they're automatically shit on. And if you're rich, well, that makes it even worse, right? Because what problems could you possibly have? You're rich, right? So that automatically makes people hate Hasan. Fair enough. And then one of the biggest proponents or defenders of his position was Asmongold, right? And unfortunately, Asmongold falls in that same bucket. He is a streamer who is rich, and so therefore, no matter what he says, people look at the fact that he has a lot of money. They look at the fact that he hasn't had that many real jobs. He worked at the IRS. I think that was like his only real job, and besides that, he also has his whole house is a mess, right? And so people look at those specifics about him and they attack those things about Asmongold rather than attacking his actual argument. And that's how you know that, you know, they are predisposed to disagreeing with him without actually understanding and comprehending what he is saying. Luckily for me, I happen to be a content creator who's not rich. I do not have a lot of money. I have very small amounts of money compared to these guys. Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but first we have to talk about what did Hasan even say? What did Hasan even say? Because one of the things that was trending was, and I think this was started from Keemstar and Drama Alert, people said that Hasan thinks that streaming is harder than a real job. It's not what he said. Let's listen to what he actually said.
Social battery wise, unless you're in retail, unless you're in fucking retail, it's very different. You're out of touch with them. I'm gonna die, dude. There's motherfuckers who are accountants in here and they're misunderstanding what I'm saying. A real job does not expend your social battery in the same fucking way as someone who did a sales job, a real job. Okay, I'm telling you, as someone who did both, 9 hours of constant performance and people pleasing taps you out from social scenarios.
Okay, so far what we've learned is that he's saying from a social battery perspective, streaming for 9 hours a day is more draining on that social battery than most other real jobs. And he does put some exceptions there. He says retail is an exception, service jobs are an exception, right? So he didn't say all real jobs, but he's saying that most real jobs aren't as socially demanding as live streaming, and that statement I absolutely agree with. Absolutely. Let's press play.
After 9 hours of that, I could probably do fucking physical labor. It would not bother me, but I can't fucking do more social shit. That's my point. There are obviously real jobs out there that are good comparisons. Service sector, people pleasing jobs would be very similar. Those are like, I think, customer service type shit. But like if you're an accountant or if you're even like in sales, my interactions with clients was limited, way more limited than like constantly having to do this for 9 hours with like a back and forth interaction for 9 hours. That's what like sucks your social battery and you just tap out after it.
And then he goes on to explain that it's kind of like giving a presentation at your office for 9 hours straight. Okay, so again, let's quickly recap what his point was, because I think this is the biggest area of confusion, right? He's saying that the social drain on a streamer is greater than most other real jobs. Not all real jobs, but most other real jobs. Some exceptions are retail, customer service things, customer facing things that, you know, people pleasing types of jobs. That was his actual in context point. And as somebody myself who does content creation, who has done plenty of live streams, I've made money from live streams, I pay bills from making content, live streams included, I can say for sure that live streaming is one of the most socially draining jobs that I have ever had. And because I know that a lot of people watching this video have no idea who I am, let me give you guys a little bit of context so you understand where I'm coming from, and that way you know that I'm not some rich streamer. Okay, my main channel, not this YouTube channel, but my main channel has 65,000 subscribers, and my main source of income right now, my main job is making YouTube videos. Okay, and I do stream occasionally, but what I have found for me is that live streaming is so much harder than making YouTube videos that I tend to not do it, right? I straight up I opt out as it, even though it is kind of part of my job to make content, and streaming is content. It's just my time, I feel, is better spent making more videos because it's better for my sanity, and I feel like I'm better at it. I think the skill set with streaming and making videos overlaps a little bit, but it's not nearly as much as people think. I think being consistently entertaining for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours is very different than being able to film 2 hours of content and edit it down to an entertaining 20 minutes. Those are totally different things. It's way easier to be entertaining in an edited form and to really get your idea across than it is to constantly be on for multiple hours. So for me, as a content creator, that being my main source of income, I opt out of streaming because of how socially demanding it is. Now, let me give you guys some context as to what other jobs I've done as a 29-year-old to give you my, give you my background. Okay. And just to be clear, based on the performance of my YouTube channel in the past couple of months, it is unlikely that I will break 6 figures this year. Okay. So I am not rich. A lot of you watching make more money than me, straight up. It is what it is. Okay. So I'm not a Hasan, I'm not an Asmongold. I've got 65,000 subscribers and I'm just trying to make it. Okay. And I live in New York City, which, my cost of living is way higher than a lot of other places. Just giving you guys some context here. I know that's my choice, that's my decision. I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm just giving you guys my kind of background. Okay. So what other jobs have I had as a 29-year-old that makes me think that Hasan is right? I worked at an upscale Italian restaurant as a busboy. Okay. I worked in food service. I worked at a summer recreation camp taking care of and watching kids not, I don't know, 7 to 10 years old, something like that. I worked at a delivery company for a while where that included working in the warehouse, filling up tractor trailers with heavy packages. Also, there were many times where I myself would have to fill up a van with something and drive that van and literally deliver packages to customers, like what you would expect a delivery driver to do. But I also had to bring super heavy and expensive medical equipment inside hospitals. Like it was everything. Okay. Delivery drivers, you have my respect, especially Amazon, because that's crazy. I worked at Express, the clothing retailer in most malls that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. I was basically the only guy that worked there, so they always put me in the men's section to sell men's clothing. I also then worked at a retro video game store. This was kind of like a mom and pop retail thing where we sold N64 games. We sold original Xbox, original PlayStation, all that stuff. We did buying and selling, so it's kind of like a pawn shop almost as well. And then I worked at Apple for 6 years, and I had a bunch of different roles at Apple. I started as a salesperson, right? So selling phones, computers, all that stuff. Eventually I ended up as a Mac technician, so I would do Mac repairs, computer repairs, iPhone repairs, right, all that stuff. But I was also customer facing tech support, so I would do a lot of diagnostics, troubleshooting, and problem solving with that sort of stuff. And I also worked at a movie theater, right? I completely forgot about that. I did ticket sales. I also did cleaning of the theaters after movies. I also worked at the snack bar, so during rush hour, that was absolutely insane. And so I've worked in a lot of like the entry level jobs that you might think of. Okay, I've never really worked in like hospitality, I've never worked in fast food, but I feel like I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different industries, probably more than some. And I think it's likely that I have more experience with real jobs than Hasan or Asmongold or whatever. So despite all of that, I still think Hasan is right. The only job out of all of those jobs that I've listed that I would say is as socially taxing, or maybe even more so, is customer facing tech support. Customer facing tech support is one of the most socially draining jobs that I've ever had by a mile. Okay, because the average person coming in for tech support has such little knowledge of what help they need or what they're even doing, right? Like I would have to reset a customer's password, and I tell them it needs an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, and a number, and they look at me with this blank stare and an empty head, and I have to explain to them that uppercase letters are the big ones, the capitals, and then the lowercase letters are the small letters. And then they're like, oh, and they wipe the drool off their mouth. And, you know, like the average person seeking tech support is just so, 70 IQ ish, right? Like it's very, and I don't mean to like be rude, but like working in it for 5-6 years, like people really have, they are so bad with tech. It's unbelievable actually that they even were able to find the location of their appointment at the correct time is shocking, right? And so customer facing tech support is so socially demanding because there is such a gap in understanding between the customer and you, and trying to problem solve while also making them not mad, right? People, if they break their phone, they crack their screen, whatever, they come in mad because they know it's expensive, right? So there's lots of hurdles there, and at the end of the day, I was completely drained, couldn't do anything. I'm going home, I'm knocking out, that's it, right? And streaming for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours has me feeling almost the same. It literally does. And I think a lot of people don't understand that because they think that streaming is just talking to a camera for 9 hours or 6 hours or whatever, because, technically that is what you're doing. But what makes a good streamer is being entertaining for that time. And it's actually really hard to be constantly entertaining, which is why you see a lot of streamers do react content and all these other things. And sure, there's dull moments and they do have some leeway, and some people are just putting them on in the background so they don't have to be super entertaining all the time. But streaming is just not an easy job. Okay. People love to say, oh, well, you just play a video game all day. It's like, look, if you think that streaming is just playing a video game on stream and you think you're going to make thousands of dollars doing it, then you should do that, brother. If you think you can do it, you should do it. And then people say, oh, well, it's all just luck. And that's how you know that they don't know what they're talking about, because it's not all luck. That whatever. That's a whole different point that we're not going to get down. Okay. So as somebody who does not make a lot of money and has had plenty of real world jobs, I can agree that Hasan is completely right here. It's definitely true. That is way more socially draining to be a streamer than it is to do most other jobs. If I were to guess, I would say being like a nurse at a hospital is probably way more socially draining than being a streamer. No question. Nurses are literal superheroes, doctors, surgeons, unbelievable what they do. But Hasan is talking about a social perspective. So here's a little litmus test that you can use to determine if your job is socially draining. Okay. If you leave work and you are going to go hang out with friends, you might meet your coworkers for drinks after work. Maybe you jump into like a Discord call with a bunch of buddies. If you can do those things after work, then your social battery is not completely drained, right? Like that's what it means to have a socially drained battery, is to be unable to socialize anymore. You have to lay down, you have to be alone for a little bit, you have to recharge, you have to chill out. So if you have a job that kind of allows those things and you feel okay going to the bar after work, well, then your job's not that socially draining, right? I mean, you have some left in the tank, you're able to do some stuff, and that's great. Like, I think it's not good to have a socially draining job, right? And I think this is where we come into the contentious debate here, where people can't possibly logic with what Hasan is saying. They cannot understand what he's saying because it's such an emotional part of their life, right? People love to do the one-upmanship game with their tragedies, with their hardships. Okay, how many times have you had an awful experience at the airport and you tell somebody about your awful experience and their first response is, oh, that's nothing, when I went to Atlanta this one time there was a layover and blah blah, and they start telling you about their experience that they feel is even worse, right? They're trying to one up you with their worst experience. Okay, and people do this with work as well. Work is such a traumatizing part of their life. It is such a big part of their life that they can't accept that there could be something else that is worse than that for other people that they do consistently. Okay, and again, it's more of an emotional thing, right? Like, your job is the responsibility and burden that you bear on a daily basis, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days out of a week, right? It is what you do. And for a lot of people, especially for men, I think it gives them some meaning in their life, even if it's like kind of just a generic, accounting job or whatever the case might be. I think because that is how you put food on the table, and that is how you contribute to your society in whatever small minor way that it might be. That is where some of the meaning of your life actually comes from, whether you realize it or not, right? A lot of times people don't think that their job has meaning in their life, but then they get a day off and they don't know what to do with it, and that's because your job is such a big part of your life, right? And when you're talking about somebody's livelihood and the responsibility and burden that they're bearing, when people hear that, you know, this millionaire has a statement that their job is more socially draining than them, it short circuits the logic. It basically, it makes them feel like the burden that they're bearing you know, isn't good enough, right? Or they're not as worthwhile because, oh, this other person just does something and they're saying that it's even harder. And so again, the logic center's short circuited, and they say, oh, this guy's a millionaire, oh, this guy's got a big house, oh, he just sits there and watches YouTube videos, and they ignore the actual point that he's making, which again is very simple. Saying streaming is socially draining. True, literally true. Like, and I think the problem too is that people can't really put their themselves in the shoes of a streamer, right? They think that if they're streaming all day, they're watching videos, sure, but can you do that for 9 hours straight? Okay, maybe you can. Can you do that 9 hours straight 5 days a week? Okay, maybe you can. Can you do that 9 hours straight for 5 days a week for 5 years straight? Right? Like, people tune into a stream for 30 minutes a day or 30 minutes a week even, and they think that, you know, they forget that streamer, like, that's their whole life, is that all the time. Okay, and so to just assume that streaming is just like this easy, oh, you just kind of chill out, man, you just drink your kombucha and you're just vibing, like, it's really not. Okay, it's really not. And again, the point wasn't that streaming is a hard job. Okay, I make content as my full-time job right now, and I'm not as successful as these people, but I can say that making content is not the hardest job that I've ever had. There are parts about it that are way more stressful than other jobs that I've had, absolutely, but that nuance is not something that people can arrive at logically, right? They think, oh, well, you just sit in your room all day and you talk to a camera. Like, yeah, okay, if you dumb it down to, like, yeah, sure, that, yes, of course, but there's pros and cons to everything, right? And one of the cons of streaming is that it's socially draining, and it's very socially draining because it's for 9 hours, 3 hours, 4 or whatever. And that's how we get here, right? That's how we get Hasan trending for what is arguably his worst take, when in reality, you know, maybe he just didn't deliver it perfectly well. And also, the people that started sharing the clip, it was very clearly clipped out of context, right? We have to be very clear about that. I know Drama Alert did this. Keemstar's always a little snake, just trying to get things trending, you know. It is what it is. That's his job. Okay, I'm not gonna hate him for that, but, you know, clipping things out of context makes people think that he had one statement when he actually had another. And when, you know, from my perspective, someone who's lived both lives and been pretty much broke the whole way, I could say for sure that his nuanced take here is true, for sure. And I just feel like I had to make this video to talk about it because I feel like there aren't that many people in my position, right? There's the mega streamers who make millions of dollars and people just write off their opinions, and then there's the people who have real jobs and their life is really hard, and so they're just being mad at Hasan, which is what people do. And I'm kind of in the middle there, and I just wanted to give you guys my perspective. Anyway, drop a dislike on the video like I know you've probably already done. Make sure that you leave a comment down below without watching this entire video, and I'll know if you have for sure, and if you did, then I will probably link you to this part of the video. But also, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, click the thumbs up button if you actually enjoy the video, comment down below and everything like that. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.